Welcome, everybody. This is episode number 45 of the Below the Yellow Line podcast. I am your host, Joseph Laney Pavlon. Alongside with me, I have Blake Cool, Daniel Ford, and Justin Hebert, our usual panel. And we are ready for a NASCAR filled, Daytona filled podcast. This was a crazy Busch Clash, to say the least. I can't put it into words what we saw yesterday. We could call it the Busch Crash. I mean,
That is a perfect way to put it. Like I know I was at work yesterday, Joseph, but I came in on the Skype call with you guys, and I heard that there was been so many wrecks. Like, how many cautions were there?
within the last 10 laps, there were about like 5 cautions.
My God! So it's just like five wrecks at Daytona. I'm like,
Yeah, 5
oh
wrecks.
no,
And
this is not good.
mind you, this was an 18-car race.
But do you know what else is funny about
And it mentioned, and he just got narrowed down to like 4 drivers or 5 drivers.
We will get more into the
Yeah.
Busch Clash in just a moment.
Yeah, but also just to say, the final laps of the race lasted 1 hour. From lap 65 and on was 1 hour of.
Due to red flags.
Yeah.
All right, so to get things started, we had the kickoff of Speed Weeks 2020 at Daytona International Speedway. We'll talk about the Daytona 500, of course. We'll get more into the Busch Clash later, and we'll talk about the ARCA Daytona 200, the season opener of the 20 race tour, as well as some of the other events that we had. We'll briefly get into the Monster Energy Supercross at San Diego, California for the 6th race of the season, and the lone endurance race of the year, a snowy 14 hours of Road Atlanta. So let's get started right off the bat with ARCA. So this was their first race of their season 20 race tour, and we got our first repeat winner since John West Townley in 2016, and second since Bobby Gerhardt's 7 wins at Daytona.
Yep.
This is actually the first race without Bobby Gerhardt. And get well, Bobby. He's he had a heart attack in the offseason.
Yeah.
But Michael Self put on a clinic. He led 61 of the 80 laps in the race
Yep.
in Bill Venturini's car from the pole, and he won over Haley Deegan, who started 7th. Drew Dollar finished third. These 3 drivers are actually going to go for the season-long championship for these 20 races. Dollar started 5th. Sean Correr, who almost won the race in 2018, led 7 laps, started 20th. Chad Moffitt, who is related to the Petty family, started 33rd. So 2 DGR Crosley cars in the top 5. Jason White from Canada started 4th, finished 6th. Riley Herbst for Joe Gibbs Racing finished 7th from 6th on the grid. You'll see him racing at Xfinity this year. Willie Mullins, who finished 2nd 2 years ago, finished 8th from 21st on the grid. Then you had Brett Holmes, who finished 3rd in the points 1 year ago. He came home 9th on Saturday night after leading 8 laps from the 18th spot. And Scott Melton for Kimmel Racing finished 10th from 23rd. So let's talk about ARCA. Let's get a little bit into, about what makes people excited about Haley Deegan. Of course, this is her first race at a big track at Daytona.
Yeah, and she finished 2nd. Just think about it. The whole race. Well, with or should I say, with 30 laps to go. Like, the bottom lane of the track was just working, and she was falling back a few times.
She was more comfortable at the top.
Yeah, she was more comfortable at the top, but once she found out that bottom lane was working, she got straight up there, and she was in contention to even get a chance to win that race. But Michael Self winning that race, it's all good.
That's a great start to the season. Haley Deegan's under a microscope, and this is what female drivers have because, you have a bigger microscope. When you're someone like Haley Deegan, you have a lot of press. A lot of people are watching, not just for the race, but for her. She's got a big following, and to see her perform under pressure like that was great. She was in the top 5 for the majority of the race.
Yeah.
This wasn't a lucky second place finish. I mean, if you want to call out a lucky finisher of this ARCA race, throw in Willie Mullins, throw in Scott Melton, throw in heck, even Sean Corr. I know Sean Corr is a talented driver, but
he's not in the best squad, man. He's
right.
Midfield.
You're not the best driver.
Yeah.
I mean, even at a track like Chicago, he's not going to keep up with that car like that.
Like,
Yeah.
it's his family-owned team, Empire Racing.
Right. I mean, we saw so much diversity in that race. Dave Maynard III, the guy who won the Snowball Derby in 1978. He's 64 years old. He was up front.
He
Started third and ran up high as first for a split second.
But he got into the big one when
Right.
JJ Pack.
Let's start that.
Yeah. Also, about
Well,
that
Scott
ARCA
Melton
race,
finished 10th. He was kind of the perpetrator of this wreck when he
but-
was he was on the inside. They were going about 2 wide, 2, 3 wide. Then JJ Pack, who was out of shape,
He kind of
came up way too early in front of the other cars.
He came down.
Yeah,
on,
that was very unfortunate.
He came down
Yeah.
on Decker and Connor Hall.
Right, Natalie Decker, Connor Hall, 2
got
forwards
both.
actually. They were involved.
Both Chad Bryan cars, also Jacob Hefner in the 77 got collected. And also, before that, we had a lap 1 incident when the 0-2 of Andy Seiss came down on David Gravel, spun through the grass, collected Scott Reeves, Jason Kitzmiller, and Eric Cottle, which second caution, Jason Kitzmiller blew up on lap 12 of the
The
race.
third caution, we had Brad Smith going around blowing his engine.
And then we had the big one. after
Right, and the
that.
big one happened in turn 1. A lot of cars were
Oh.
taking out. A lot of great cars too. We had say what you want about Natalie Decker, but she can run a good car, an ARCA car at Daytona really well. Dominic Van Viergen, who splits that team with her brother Tristan.
We had both Chad Bryan cars, the 22 and 77.
David Gravel
Yeah.
making his asphalt debut.
Yeah.
But he actually finished the race, but a
Right.
lap down.
In fact, his right side was so ripped up they had to put black
Tape.
tape on the entirety. You couldn't see from the right side.
And also, we had Dave Mader III got collected.
Right, that was very unfortunate because he had a great car.
Andy Seiss that rebounded from the lap 1 incident. He got caught up in it too.
Right, that was pretty much the nail in the coffin for his day. So yeah, the ARCA point standings since the first race was completed, it basically matches the results of the race.
But remember with the new ARCA points.
Yeah, the
it's not
point
like-
increments have changed.
It's not
um,
like 200 some points.
right.
anymore. No,
It's
no.
basically the points, how points are given in NASCAR
20
nowadays. So basically, the 2011 point handout
Yeah.
system is what you see now.
Yep.
So basically, Michael Self winner scored 49 points. Haley Deegan scored 42 points, so 7-point difference. Then 41 points, then 39, 38. You get a point for leading a lap. You get 2 points for leading the most laps. It's a very neat system, and they break it down a little better. So there's that. Their next race will be in a few weeks at Phoenix for round 2 of 20. They have a lot of different changes in the schedule. We'll talk about ARCA later on, but that's just to kick us off before we get into NASCAR. We're going to talk about the Clash, and then we'll get into the Daytona 500. So now that ARCA is complete, we'll get into NASCAR. So
Oh, God.
Daytona begins, of course, with the exhibition race designed for pole winners of the past season. It's
And
called the
champions.
Clash. The
Yep.
2020 edition of the race, Busch is back. They actually sponsored the original race back in 1979. We had 20 eligible drivers, but 18 showed up for the race, and each one of them had a fair, equal shot to win.
But,
In fact, the man who led the most laps was Brett Keselowski, involved in the first wreck, and the first wreck was actually on lap 67 of 72. The race was supposed to be 75 laps
but it was extended to 88 laps.
due to the green white checker rules. And lap 60. So the second. So I'd say the first big crash was when Kyle Busch and Joey Logano were fighting for the lead, and they went 3 wide for a split second with Denny Hamlin. It went wrong, and then Logano and Busch were set to the wall, taking out Keselowski.
And
That was
Brian-
coming off turn 4.
Yeah, like when Kyle Busch kind of clipped. The reason that Kyle Busch got sideways again, one of the reasons, when Kyle Busch hit Logano, they could have saved it. Guess what? How got
He
what?
overcorrected it.
But do you want to know what else? Denny Hamlin hit Kyle. Denny Hamlin had right side
That
damage.
right side
Was the
damage would
hit.
ultimately get to him 2 cautions later.
But the next caution was
Well, this was basically at the restart. So Hamlin was in the lead, and then they
Ryan Newman and William
William
Byron.
Byron.
They spun
Yeah.
the tires. Newman collects Truex. Everybody started getting in the grass or in the wall. I was pissed that Bowman got put on the wall by Clint Boyer.
Everybody had like behind the wreck was involved. It was just a bizarre situation. You don't, especially in the Cup Series, see a massive wreck on a restart. I mean, that actually reminded me of the start of the 2004 Nextel All-Star Open when Casey Mears brake checked everyone wrecked right at the quad oval. You guys should look that up on YouTube when you have free time.
But that wreck on the restart was so crazy. Like, I'm like, what the heck are they doing?
Very awkward situation. And carnage everywhere. So after that happened, then
we had going
Denny Hamlin. So Denny Hamlin, of course, still with the tire rub from the Kyle Busch crash, was in the lead, and he had a great push from Chase Elliott. So Hamlin was by himself heading into turn 3, and this was actually under an overtime situation. So it was 2 laps to go, essentially.
But Joseph, remember Hamlin wiggled on the back straightaway before.
You could tell that tire was going down.
I'm like, oh, Hamlin's loose. I'm like, something's going on. And then
and the moment that car snapped, everyone behind him was in it.
The only one that got by that wreck was Austin Dillon.
And for a brief moment, it looked like he was going to win the race. Well, actually, no, it was Austin Dillon, Chase Elliott, and Kyle Larson.
Yeah.
But then the next caution happened, which. You know what happened on the next yellow. Going into turn 3, we had another incident. Chase Elliott tried to block Kyle Larson.
Larson came down on him.
But Larson got forced.
See, the thing was, it kind of reminded me of the Kyle Busch, Joey Logano situation.
Yeah, Chase kind of tried to turn down, which was not working.
You're going for the win, and you come into the white flag.
And then, and then Chase got in the wall. And Kyle Larson, but do you want to know what's more? And guess who else got in that wreck?
Eric Jones
in the 20. Final restart.
He was in 3 consecutive wrecks and 3 consecutive cautions.
Austin Dillon and Ryan Newman were the leaders.
And Newman blows up in turn 3.
Newman had an issue going to 3, but do you want to know how?
Wait a minute, Newman blew up in turn 3?
Yes, he had an engine failure in the turn.
Dang, that's unfortunate, man.
Yeah, he just. But do you want to know one reason people say, oh, Austin Dillon should have won the race? I'm like,
he pulled on the inside and lost all draft that was there, and yet Hamlin and Jones were flying on the outside. Hamlin lapped down, helping Jones.
One, Austin Dillon actually had damage. He had rear damage.
Everyone had damage.
Yeah. 2, Hamlin. You saw Hamlin pushing Eric Jones the whole time.
Right. And Eric Jones had no front.
Yeah, you saw how taped up it was. But and people said any other regular race, the car would be in the garage. Eric Jones finished with the destroyed car.
A car that looks like Eric Jones yesterday would look like a car that belongs in the garage area in any other race.
But I'm like...
And that's why they don't use the Daytona 500 cars, and I can see why Daniel Suarez, Gaunt Brothers didn't enter.
That would have not been good
Yeah.
for that.
I wouldn't want to enter a car myself.
But
I know. It's...
Yeah. But congrats to Eric Jones. People said he doesn't deserve the 20 ride, which...
He sure does.
Christopher Bell fans, calm down. Hey.
Bell's in a good ride anyways. We'll talk about him in a little bit.
Yeah, but really good. There was 6 finishers, 5 on the lead lap, 6th place Denny Hamlin lap down, 7th to 18th were out of the race. That's how many finishers finish.
Mm-hmm. With that win, Eric Jones will be permanently eligible for any future Clash races. So that's what we have now for the Busch Clash. Let's now talk about the main event. We'll break it down. The 2020 Daytona 500. It's the 62nd running of this race, and let's start off with what we saw in practices, and then we'll get into qualifying. So the first practice was on
Saturday.
Saturday. I know I said Sunday, but yes, on Saturday. And,
Yeah.
I'm just going to list down the top. So the fastest lap time was Ty Dillon with a 44.206 second lap at a speed of 203.592 miles an hour. You can tell that is what a lap looks like in the pack.
Yeah, in the
And
draft.
then if you look at the fastest in practice 2, we kind of have the same situation when Bubba Wallace with a 45.878 and actually I don't know if he was in a pack here because his speed was
No, he wasn't. Don't
196.172.
know why, Joseph. About that practice 1, the drivers decided to do pack racing, practicing for the 500. Practice 2, they decided to do like qualifying runs.
So they were going by
themselves.
themselves. I could see it because he had a 196
That's
while
what
Dylan had a
said.
203.
Yeah, Austin, like Stenhouse, his pole time, he was going the 196 miles per hour, which, yeah. And the practices went good for some drivers not good. Like Brad Keselowski, just saying, guys, people mock Brad Keselowski for hitting a fence. Like,
He had to dodge a car.
but guess who that car was? Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
And we're going to get to him right now. So, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Won the
Daytona 500 pole.
for the listen. Let's talk about this in the offseason. He was announced to go into JGD Daugherty Racing from Roush Fenway Racing. Many people say this as a step down. In my opinion, they're kind of on the same playing field as Roush has declined a little bit through the years on speed and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. had a blistering lap. 46.253 at a speed of 194.582 miles an hour over Alex Bowman, who had a 46.305.
He was the closest driver.
Those are both very, very fast laps at Daytona.
Yep.
That's right. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. knows how to do the plate racing so well. He's won twice at these types of tracks. In actually the same season, 2017, he won the Aaron's 499 in Talladega, and they won the Coke Zero 400 Daytona 2017 as his only 2 Cup wins. I could tell you he knows how to get it done. Say what you want about his antics. He's a great qualifier. He's great at getting a car fast. We know this. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was picked,
and he's starting
for that reason.
He's starting to be a proving driver on restricted plate tracks.
Yep.
Absolutely, he's proven himself. And let's take a look at the qualifying results. And so the qualifying results in order. Third place. So if you don't know how Daytona 500 qualifying works, the top 2 starters, the front row, are locked. Those positions are locked into the 500.
So it's Stenhouse and Bowman on the front row.
So the rest are down where it's Chase Elliott, Jimmy Johnson, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Eric Almirola, William Byron, Christopher Bell, Eric Jones, Joey Logano, Kevin Harvick, Clint Bowyer, Cole Custer, Ryan Newman, Matt DiBenedetto, Ryan Preece, Tyler Reddick, Chris Buescher, Kyle Larson, Martin Truex Jr., Kurt Busch, Brad Keselowski, Michael McDowell, John Hunter Nemechek, David Reagan, Ryan Blaney, Ross Chastain, Austin Dillon, Ty Dillon, Justin Haley, Bubba Wallace, Brendan Gaughan, Reed Sorensen, Timmy Hill, Daniel Suarez, Corey LaJoie, Quinn Houff, JJ Yeley, Brendan Poole, Chad Fincham, Joey Gacy, BJ McLeod. Now, let me just break this down. So, the following drivers are go homers: Justin Haley, Brendan Gaughan. I'll get into those 2 in just a minute. Reed Sorensen, Timmy Hill, Daniel Suarez, JJ Yeley, and Chad Fincham. Justin Haley and Brendan Gaughan, per Daytona 500 qualifying rules, the top 2 fastest of the go homers are locked in based off their speed from Sunday's time trials.
Yeah,
they were the fastest.
So no matter where they get in the duels, they're still locked into the 500. However, you go down on that list of at-risk drivers, you have Reed Sorensen, Timmy Hill, Daniel Suarez, JJ Yeley, and Chad Fincham. So there's 5 drivers here.
Yep.
They will be racing twice as hard on Thursday to get into the 500. It's a tough ordeal for them.
Like, yeah. And also, Duel 1 will have 21 cars.
So yeah, let's get into our
Another
dual
duel.
lineups.
But also, Duel 2 will have 22 cars and other things about the duels. It's two. The races are 60 laps each, guys, if you didn't know. But the duels, basically, you just have to be in a certain position because the thing is, you have two duels, but there's three cars that are not making the race because there's 43 cars, 40 make the race, so three people are missing the race. It's not like Xfinity and truck qualifying where there's no duels in the trucks in Xfinity. It's not that. But
And this is only for the Daytona 500.
Yep.
Let's
will never happen.
get into the starting laps of the first of the two dual races. As Justin mentioned, they are 60 laps each. So Ricky Stenhouse Jr., by the way, just because you're locked in the 500, that means you still are in the duels. So Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Chase Elliott, then you have Denny Hamlin, Eric Almirola, Christopher Bell, Joey Logano, Clint Boyer, Ryan Newman, Ryan Preece, Chris Buescher, Martin Truex Jr., Brad Keselowski, John Hunter Nemechek, Ryan Blaney, Austin Dillon, Justin Haley, Bubba Wallace, Reed Sorensen, Daniel Suarez, Quinn Huff, Chad Fincham, Joey Gay. So let's highlight a few drivers from this list. Justin Haley, Reed Sorensen, Daniel Suarez, and Chad Fincham. Those are four drivers. Take one out of the picture, Justin Haley, due to his speed from Sunday. You have three drivers in this mix that are fighting to get in the 500. Reed Sorensen, who's been in the Cup Series for over a decade and a half, he's been in several teams. He's a veteran driver. Daniel Suarez, who's a skilled driver in numerous teams and shown speed. He's in the new Gaunt Brothers team in a Toyota number 96. Chad Fincham in a Toyota prepared by Carl Long.
Yeah, MBM Motorsports.
So there's three drivers here because you take Haley out of the equation, you go from 4 to 3. Which one of these three drivers are you most comfortable with predicting on who's going to get in the 500?
Which other three?
So the drivers are, of course, Justin Haley, who's already in from speed, Reed Sorensen, Daniel Suarez, and Chad Fincham.
I feel like I know Suarez, that 96 car, has more speed than Fincham and more speed than Sorensen, but the thing about there's other things I've noticed. Like Sorensen has the experience, but not the car. He has a premium motorsports car.
Right. I don't know if that car is going to work.
But he's been close to make the 500 in 2017, but Corey LaJoie decided to just...
The competition to get in the 500 that year wasn't even that big.
Yeah, honestly, it wasn't.
I don't know why Corey LaJoie took him out.
Well, I guess they still ridicule him for it, but it is what it is. Reed Sorensen is going to do whatever it takes to get in the 500. He's driving for Premium Motorsports, of course. They are not the highest team when it comes to speed, but you take it as what you will. It's any opportunity, you go for it. Same with Chad Fincham, rookie driver for Carl Long and the Garrison Homes Toyota, number 49. He has to qualify on time, but I think I'm most comfortable with Daniel Suarez in the number 96 Toyota TRD Camry. It's not a full factory equipped car like you see in Joe Gibbs Racing. It's going to rely on pack racing.
Yeah, and if you don't have a factory car, you're just not going to be quite as competitive because you don't have the equipment that the front runners are going to have.
But they're working to get full factory support though, which is a good start. And Daniel Suarez is a former Toyota driver. If you go back to 2017,
Joe Gibbs.
Yep.
Joe Gibbs Racing.
Yep.
So
with that said, let's move on to the second.
But
duel.
before we go, I know last year he got signed with Stuart Haas. If he was to choose Ford, then what team would he be with?
Question marks.
Yeah.
His front row already got filled up pretty quick.
Yeah, man.
Move on to Duel 2 now.
Yeah.
So just like Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in Duel 1, Alex Bowman, he's still locked position into the 500. He's going to lead off of the grid from Duel 2 next to Jimmy Johnson. Then you have Kyle Busch, William Byron, Eric Jones, Kevin Harvick, Cole Custer, Matt DiBenedetto, Tyler Reddick, Kyle Larson, Kurt Busch, Michael McDowell, David Reagan, Ross Chastain, Ty Dillon, Brendan Gaughan, Timmy Hill, Corey LaJoie, JJ Yeley, Brendan Poole, and BJ McLeod will be in that duel. So let's take a look at the drivers that we need to focus on in this list. Brendan Gaughan, and yes, I know he locked in off speed. But you look further down, Timmy Hill and a Carlong Ford. Yes, Carlong has one Ford and one Toyota for this race. Look further down, JJ Yeley. So there are 3 drivers from this list here. Take away Brendan Gaughan, you got yourselves with 2 on this list. It's going to really be down to Timmy Hill in the number 66 Carlong Roofclaims.com BSI Racing Ford, or the unsponsored number 54 Rick Ware Racing Ford of JJ Yeley.
And I think the driver who might win out of those 2 is JJ Yeley, because again, anybody who's watched NASCAR or at least paid attention to it would know that JJ Yeley has a lot of experience in the sport.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing. Timmy Hill is not per se a rookie, but he doesn't have very much experience. Is he a rookie in Cup?
No.
He's not. Okay, he's not a rookie in Cup, but he doesn't have the experience of JJ Yeley.
Right.
He only
multi-decade experience.
Yeah, like Yeley started racing in NASCAR in the 2000s.
But here's the thing. We're talking about 2 of the weakest teams off speed, Carl Long, and probably even weaker because your teammate's in a Toyota and you're driving a Ford. How are you going to work with that? And then, of course, then you have Rick Ware Racing Ford, JJ Yeley.
Yeah, I'll just say Rick Ware Racing has 2 Fords and a Chevrolet. They have
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
But they have BJ McLeod and Yeley.
Right, but at least he has another Ford to work with on this team.
But he has no sponsors.
True, and he's unsponsored. So, I mean,
that's
a very, very tough call. I think JJ Yeley can make it into the 500. He will. I think he's going to have the upper end over Timmy Hill. You know, I think
it's very hard to say, though, because there's a lot going on there, a lot of factors, and it's kind of on the teetering edge of, is he going to make it? Is he not?
Yeah.
Best thing you want to do is bet on those cautions, stay in the pack, don't mess up in the pits.
Don't try to lose the draft.
Yeah, that's another thing. When you're in those slow cars, I mean, we've seen slower cars stay in the pack, but how slow is too slow? But I don't recall Rick Ware Racing cars staying and keeping up with the pack too well.
Like Rick Ware Racing, I'm actually going to go check Yeley's lap time, because I knew it was not that good. Like JJ Yeley,
it was honestly pretty weak.
He had a 49.102. He was the fastest.
He was actually 23rd in practice 1. Well, it's practicing with a pack, though. And not everyone practiced in a pack.
But don't know what?
Yeah.
The fastest driver that's not locked into the 500 yet is Reed Sorensen. Ran a 48.037. You're comparing a 48.037 to a 49.102. He was a second faster than Yeley.
JJ Yeley was the only driver in practice 2 to have the fastest lap of 50 seconds.
But like Suarez ran a 48.523. Sorensen was the fastest driver not locked in. Timmy Hill ran a 48.225. But Suarez was a mile an hour slower than Hill and 2 miles per hour slower than Reed Sorensen.
Right. But as we know, at Daytona, the draft is very, very important. There's a big draft there. It's a very big track. Super speedway.
Yep.
So if he can stay in the draft, he might have a chance.
Yep.
And with big pack racing equals big wrecks. Dodge a wreck, dodge 2 wrecks, you might find yourself in a position to make the Daytona 500.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And just out of the blue, who's going to win the dual races? I know it's a tough call for me, I know that really sounds kind of irrelevant to the conversation we're in, but I feel like in Duel 1, I expect Chase Elliott to win that. And by the way, the winner, if you're not locked into the front row, you get third place. If the pole sitter or second row starter or second place starter wins their respective duels, then the highest position below them gets the third place or fourth place spot on the grid. Remember, Duel 1 determines the inside lane, Duel 2 determines the outside lane. They as a whole determine who makes the 500, who does not. It's a tough ordeal. There's 60 laps. These laps go by fast, unapologetically. It's just the nature of Daytona.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Tough
It's
track to
very
race at.
unpredictable, man.
We will get into
only,
Daytona
but
500.
only you can predict the outcome.
We will talk more about the Daytona 500 predictions when we come back in just a little bit. For now, let's talk about two races that also happened on the weekend that not too many people may have talked about. We'll start off with racing off road on two wheels and racing somewhat in snowy conditions. Let's start off with the Monster Energy Supercross racing at San Diego, California for round 6 of their 17 race tour. Finishing their West Coast swing, we had Cooper Webb winning in his KTM over Kawasaki's Adam Sansorello, Blake Baggett in the KTM, Eli Tomac in a Kawasaki, and Justin Barsha's Yamaha finished 5th. And the standings look like this. Ken Roczen has a 1-point lead with 130 points scored so far.
Oh,
over Eli
no.
Tomac has 129 points. Cooper Webb has 121 points. Justin Barsha sits 4th with 116 points claimed. And Adam Sansorello is 5th with 113 points claimed. Their next race is finally on the East Coast this weekend in Tampa Bay, Florida at Raymond James Stadium.
Will you be attending that race, Joseph?
That's way too far. That's like a 6-hour drive for me.
Oh, jeez.
No.
Dang, dude.
Yeah, I'm in the Southeast Florida. That's Gulf Coast. It's far. But let's talk about the lone endurance race of the weekend. The 14 Hours of Road Atlanta. It's part of the Champ Car Endurance Series race. And the top 5 finishers overall look like this. The number 630 Parks Badger Mazda finished first over the number 90 RBankRacing.com Saab. Third place was the number 625 Crowd Control Racing Ford. Fourth place was the number 855 Birmingham Racing Lexus. And fifth place was the number 317 Yoda Sport BMW. And let's talk about something that we rarely see in racing. Snowy conditions and green flag racing.
Yep, the last time we saw that in a major endurance race was 2019's 6 Hours of Spa, where we had some very treacherous conditions. Obviously, they had to go to safety car. Thankfully, they didn't red flag it. I think, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
And but yes, very odd thing. It's not something we see very often in circuit racing in general.
You know, that's a very interesting one because I still remember from like, wow, they were snowing a little bit and we were out there, but they had almost a 3-hour red flag in the race that were in Atlanta on Saturday. But what also happened was before that, it was like snowing and you see all the snow banked on what would be the grass area. And they were still racing on snowfall.
And you're like,
do they have snow tires?
I don't know, but also, there's not much snow in Atlanta. Like
when it snows, it's pretty hard.
You want to know how I know about that? I looked on Chandler Smith's Instagram story. He is born in Atlanta. He lives in Atlanta, and he's like, there's actual snow. But I remember in that race. Do you want to know what was amazing? At one point, a Dodge Neon made an amazing move at one point. I wanted the Dodge Neon to win, but they did not win.
Where did they place?
I think there was...
They finished 6th.
They
finished 6th. That's still pretty impressive. Endurance racing. In endurance racing, the important point I want to make is this is endurance racing.
Yes.
It's not like if you think winning a Daytona 500 is hard, endurance racing is just that much more difficult even to finish.
Yep.
So all finishers, I credit all finishers. I think they all deserve credit.
2 cars finished on the lead lap, the top 2 overall. So yeah, there was that. Now let's talk about our upcoming races. We'll
Hey,
get into the
Joseph,
date.
Hey, if this gets so many likes, me and Joseph should enter a Chevy Cavalier.
I mean, hey, the Champ Car Endurance series is coming to Palm Beach International Raceway. Never say never.
But a Chevy Cavalier is kind of not safe. Okay.
No, but they make you put a roll cage in it. That costs a couple $100.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the upcoming races of the weekend. So we will talk about some, of course, the Daytona 500 Cup Series. Their first race of the 36 race tour for 2020. NASCAR Xfinity Series has the Daytona 300 for the first round of 33 races. And the Truck Series, the Genner Outdoors Truck Series, is the first round of 23 races. The Daytona 250. Before we talk about the Daytona 250, let's talk about the Asia Le Mans Series. First, the sports car race of the weekend. The 4 Hours of Sepang is their third of their 4-round season. It's been a long break for them. They came from the Bend, and you got to get back in full swing now.
And do you want to wait? I'm just checking something. Yeah, race 3 is this week. But do you want to know what else is weird about the Asian Le Mans series? Do you want to know when their last race is? The Asian Le Mans series is next race after Sepang. Guess when's their next race?
The week right after.
On February 23rd, race 4 of 4.
So yeah, the standings going into the race, you have G Drive with pretty much a 13-point lead in the LMP2 over Eurasia, and then Carlin, 31 points claimed, and Inter-Europol's cars are 4th and 5th, and LMP2M is Rick Ware Racing.
The 52 Rick Ware cars really
over the 59.
Yep.
And then the 25 Rick Ware over the number 4 ART Bratislava. LP3 is very tight. 1 point separates the 2 Nielsen over the 13 Europol. Then you have Ace, LVC, Graph, Inter-Europol. GT3 class looks like this. It's a very tight class with 10 points separating 1st through 5th. Car Guy, and then D Station, Hub Autosport, Spirit of Race, and Astro Veloz. All 10 points apart. It's going to be close.
What? Whoa. I'm checking this. Wait. You know the number 16 Astro Veloz Motorsports car? You want to know what's weird about the number 16 Astro Veloz Motorsports car? They're in the GTM and GT points. Which is weird.
That's interesting.
Do they field 2 points? I mean, 2 cars?
Yeah, the Astro Veloz has the number 16 and 17 cars.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe. So they must be fielded in 2 separate classes. Each one.
The 17s in the Astro Veloz in the GT, and GTM has the number 16.
All right, so we'll get into that later. I think it's gonna be interesting.
Also,
let's see what happens.
Also, I wanted to say there's also another.
There's a race going on right now, actually.
Where?
Yeah.
New Smyrna. The ARCA East Series opener.
Yeah.
Oh.
The United States viewers, you could watch. Other worldwide can't.
That used to be the K&N Pro East Series.
Yep, and Derek Griffith, first career start. He starts on the pole next to Max.
We'll talk about that race next week when it's finished, of course.
But also, I wanted to say about there's also another Champ Car Endurance race, 2 7-hour races at Sonoma Raceway. But this week there's not many cars. There's 82 cars at Road Atlanta. There's 34 this week.
Right. It's not a big race compared to Road Atlanta.
Road Atlanta was a 14 hours. This is only 2 7 hours on Saturday. And
right.
Sunday.
So it's twin races. You got to preserve your car.
But,
all right. Let's now get into NASCAR. So the Daytona 500, of course, is round 1 of the 36 race tour for 2020. Last year, Denny Hamlin took his second checkered flag at Daytona, and he's defending for 2020. The first race was back in 1959, won by Lee Petty. This is the 62nd edition of the race. Richard Petty holds the number for most wins by a driver at 7. Cale Yarborough has 4 wins. Then Bobby Allison, Dale Jarrett, and Jeff Gordon have 3 wins apiece. Bill Elliott, Sterling Marlin, Michael Waltrip, Matt Kenseth, Jimmy Johnson, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Denny Hamlin all have 2 wins. As for team victories, most of them 9 for Petty Enterprises. Well, Hendrick Motorsports has a great chance of tying that. They have 8 wins in the Daytona 500. The Wood brothers sit at 5. Renier Lundy, Morgan McClure Motorsports, Robert Yates Racing, Richard Childress Racing, Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, and Joe Gibbs Racing have 3 wins apiece, while Holman Moody, Junior Johnson, Melling Racing, Roush Family Racing, and Team Penske have 2 wins apiece. As for the most MIG victories, Chevrolet sits on top of that with 24 wins in the Daytona 500. Ford has 15 wins, while Plymouth and Dodge sit at 4 apiece. Mercury, Oldsmobile, Pontiac, Buick have 3, and Toyota has 2. So there are your stats. The Daytona 500, of course, was the first race off the sandy beach in Central Florida, which was first held in 1959. The ambitious views of Bill France paid off with a thrilling finish when Lee Petty won. It took a few days to determine that one over Johnny Beauchamp. And, of course, Junior Johnson found out a special way of passing cars with a slower vehicle using the draft or slipstreaming, which was a still new method of racing. There was a 68-car field, most of all Daytona 500s to this day. And then let's take a look down the history of the list. We saw Fred Lorenzen win the first called race for weather in 1965. Richard Petty became the first multiple winner of the Daytona 500, while Mario Andretti pulled off a shocker in 1967, just like A.J. Foyt did in 1972. They are the 2 drivers that have won both a Daytona 500 and an Indianapolis 500.
Hmm.
1979 was a classic, of course, when the first Daytona 500s to be broadcasted live on TV with CBS. And 1979, you only had a select amount of channels. You either had ABC, CBS, and NBC. And
that was just about it.
Most of America was covered up in snow in one of the worst blizzards in the nation's history.
Oh, yeah. Especially New York City.
So what
That was
else did you
horrible.
do that day besides watch this thing that is known as the Daytona 500? And everyone was blown away. That was one of the most insane finishes of the Daytona 500 when we saw the
Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison never gets old. It will never get old.
It's like a movie.
Yeah. Exactly.
Speaking of movies, I hope they put out a movie about that.
They should be one, honestly. Then Richard Petty, of course,
They
scored that one.
they should actually release the full race on DVD as just the whole race coverage.
That would be cool.
All right, and let's move on to some other famous Daytona 500s. Oh, some of the one a few years before that, 1976, when we saw the 2 first and second place cars crash each other, passing each other with wrecked cars for positions and limping across the line with a ruined fender, kind of similar to Eric Jones the other day, was David Pearson. And moving on to the other races that are memorable in the Daytona 500, we look at Buddy Baker, the fastest Daytona 500 in history, with an average speed of 177.602 miles an hour, which is 285.809 kilometers per hour.
Yep.
Buddy Baker's lone 500 win in 1980, and Richard Petty won his 7th and final Daytona 500 in 1981. Let's see. Cale Yarborough won in 1983, 1984. Well, Bill Elliott brought it to victory lane in 85. Jeff Bodine pulled the upset in 1986. Of course, 1988, first race with restrictor plates, and Bobby Allison won over son Davey.
That's a big historical milestone there, is the first restrictor plate race.
and also Bobby Allison became the oldest driver to win the Daytona 500. That would be his last of 3 Daytona 500 wins. Then, of course, Darrell Waltrip drove with 53 laps on his fuel tank to win in 1989. 1990, an upset win and a devastating loss. Dale Earnhardt hitting the wall after dominating the race, leading over 160 laps. Final turn, blows a tire in the wall. Derek Cope for the shortly lived Whitcomb Racing team passes Dale Earnhardt to win the race. Then Ernie Irvan cruised to victory in 1991. Davey Allison in 92. Looking through the years, 93, you had Dale Jarrett's first of 3 wins in the 500. Sterling Marlin, who was pretty much considered the first cursed driver, I'd say, due to his father, Cuckoo Marlin's unfortunate luck in NASCAR. Neither Cuckoo Marlin or Sterling Marlin could win a simple Cup Series race, despite leading all these laps. And Sterling Marlin finally won. He ran 59 laps on 1 fuel tank to the finish. And it was a pretty bloody race weekend, unfortunately, because it was a dark one, actually. Neil Bond and Rodney Orr's lives were taken in separate practice accidents. 1995, Sterling Marlin won it again. And Morgan McClure got their 3rd and final Daytona 500 win. And, of course, Jeff Gordon, 1997. Dale Earnhardt. Wait, how about Dale Earnhardt, 1998?
Yeah, and he had been waiting for that victory for many, many years.
Mm-hmm. Mike Joy said this was the most anticipated moment in racing. 20 years of trying, 20 years of frustration. It's an instant classic. Then, of course, Dale Jarrett won his 3rd and final Daytona 500 20 years ago in 2000. 2001 was a very tragic day, but a very eventful Daytona 500 win.
Probably the darkest day in NASCAR racing.
Michael Waltrip went 463 races without victory lane. Many people thought he was over. His career was down the drain until Dale Earnhardt believed in him, put him in an extra car, made a car for him. He didn't replace someone with him, or he didn't put Michael Waltrip in place of someone else. He made a team for him.
Wait.
And people call Dale Earnhardt insane.
Wait. It was actually.
But guess what? He made it happen.
It was actually Michael Waltrip's 463rd race, which is when he won 462 races.
Right. And Michael Waltrip was in the best position at the right time, while Dale Earnhardt Jr. was running second at the white flag. Dale Earnhardt Sr. was fending off the rest of the field to keep himself in the drivers for the cars he owned in those spots. Successfully, he kept them 1 and 2. Unfortunately, he went down into Sterling Marlin, and when he overcorrected, it went right in the wall, which unfortunately claimed the life of the 7-time champion.
Yep, fatal skull fracture.
Right. This was Michael Waltrip's first.
Not pretty. It was not pretty.
It was ugly. It was a day a lot of fans won't forget. It's going to be 19 years since. 2002, Ward Burton broke a long drought for Dodge, winning the Daytona 500. In 2003, Michael Waltrip scored his second of 2 Daytona 500 wins, only 109 laps. It's the shortest Daytona 500 ever.
Rain. Yep, the rain.
And, of course, Jeff Gordon got his 3rd and final Daytona 500 win in 2005. What can I say about 06? That was a classic. Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah.
Substitute crew chief.
Yep.
Yeah. How about Darian Grubb for that win, man?
Give him
And
credit.
then 2007.
The most epic, in my opinion, the most epic 500 finish ever.
I used to have
Kevin
that
Harvick
race
beating
on
out
DVD.
Mark Martin.
I remember
by
that race.
a noob.
I was in 2nd grade.
I was a 4-year-old.
I remember that
I
race
was-
lap for lap.
I think I was in 5th grade.
But what happened was Mark Martin, who was driving for the first time in almost 2 decades in a new team outside of Roush,
Yeah.
was fending off Kyle Busch, and then Kevin Harvick gets this massive run from
Yep.
God knows where. And then Harvick had with so much momentum, you couldn't block him in turn 3. Harvick gets this run. Then they go side by side while Kyle Busch and Mike Kenseth spin around, triggering a massive wreck with Bowyer's car sliding upside down.
Marlin,
Everyone.
Gordon,
And
just
coming
almost
into the
everybody.
trial,
Yep.
and coming into the trial, they are neck and neck, nose to nose, and just by mere inches.
Kevin Harvick won, and that was the 6th-year anniversary of Dale Earnhardt's death on February 18th, 2007, driving the car that Dale once drove. 2008 was an epic one as well when we saw Tony Stewart, who at this point was starting to have that question around, when are you going to win the 500? Is this the year? He was leading like a pro in the last few laps. Can Toyota win the Daytona 500 in their second try? There's a first race with Joe Gibbs Racing in a Toyota with a new driver by the name of Kyle Busch helping him. But then you see these these blue Penske cars on the outside, Kurt Busch
and Ryan Newman.
Yep.
Newman with the run of a lifetime. Tony Stewart wanted to stay safe with Kyle Busch. He really should have went high on that one. I look back, I'm like, Tony, you should have went high. But Ryan Newman got the win. And for the foreseeable future, that might be the last Daytona 500 win for Dodge.
Yeah.
But never say never. They could come back. 2009, first of 2 wins for Matt Kenseth. And then 10 years ago,
Wait, remember, Joseph, 2009 was ended on lap 152 of rain.
it's the most recent Daytona 500 to be cut
Yeah,
short.
that I honestly felt that race could have went on if
I
it
know.
wasn't a snooze fest, man. That race had potential to go to be one of the best.
If they only had a finish of the race.
I know,
I
man.
still wish they did. 2010, of course, we had the track issues due to lengthy red flags. Jamie McMurray, in his return race to Chip Ganassi Racing, did the unthinkable, just like when he entered Chip Ganassi Racing in 2002. Win. He won it.
Over Dale
Hold an
Jr.
upset win over Dale Jr.
Dale
and then,
Jr. got a massive
Speaking of upset wins, it only got crazier. 2011, Trevor Bayne, just barely 20 years of age. Driving
youngest 500 winner.
Yep.
I remember that. I remember the next day, I didn't get to watch the race, but the next day in school, people were talking about it, and I was like, what?
And it was just incredible. I remember that race lap by lap. 2012 was just an instant classic. It was supposed to be, of course, at 12 noon on Sunday, but then rain said no, and it was supposed to start on Monday afternoon. Then it got pushed to Monday night, 7 p.m. prime time on Monday night, like Monday Night Football.
Yeah, man. How about that? You know?
And then the race ended Tuesday morning at 1 a.m. Eastern. We had a lengthy red flag with an incident that Montoya's car broke while under caution, crashing into a jet dryer.
We also saw Brad Keselowski tweeting from his car.
Yes.
And David Sturmey's the one that caused the crash before he blew up. That's why the jet dryers were there. And also, Dave Blaney was leading. But do you want to know what Dave Blaney wanted to do when
he wanted the track to just melt so he could win the 500?
That would have been a good one for Tommy Baldwin, and at the end, Kenseth won over Dale Jr. and Biffle. Dale Jr. finished second again in 2012.
That would be Matt Kenseth's second of 2 Daytona 500 wins. 2013, of course, Kenseth would go on to Joe Gibbs Racing. Danica Patrick won the pole as, not a Daytona 500 rookie, but a seasoned rookie.
Yep.
And she was chasing down Jimmy Johnson and Greg Biffle while
out of nowhere comes Dale Jr. to spoil the party, and Mark Martin.
He needed an extra lap in that race.
Oh, yeah.
But Jimmy Johnson won a second of 2 500s. This could be the race. Can he win a third? 2014, This was Dale Jr.'s second of 2 Daytona 500 wins. And
he had the debris
10 years from his first. Yes.
And he had the debris on his grill, but also that race was delayed 6 hour, 22-minute red flag. Remember the rain?
Yeah, I actually remember because I had a hockey game that day back when I played ice hockey. And I was like, okay, keep raining. I want to get my game done so I can come back and not miss a lap. Yet it worked.
Remember Casey Kane when Michael Annett hit some water, he spun and almost collected Kane, and Kane got a penalty for going.
That was a very
because-
controversial penalty.
Kane-
Many people
Yeah,
thought
that was
they should not have had.
honestly that was controversial.
But I remember Parker Kligerman wrecked.
But 2015, man,
Let's get into 2015. Jeff Gordon won the pole in the final time, and of course we had the big one on the final lap, giving Joey Logano his first win in Penske's second in the Daytona 500. Joey Logano did a great job blocking those lanes. 2016, we had the closest Daytona 500 finish when Matt Kenseth seemed to have this race won, and then we see Denny Hamlin with momentum, and when he went to the outside, I'm like, are you sure that's going to work? And
Him and
his
Harvick.
momentum, he sidetracked.
I'm like, whoa, he just sent it, buddy.
Oh, remember Kevin Harvick? Kevin Harvick was on his bumper the whole
And then-
time.
And then Truex coming to the inside, and then many people thought, oh, Truex is going to win this race, possibly. And then Hamlin
But-
edges him by just a mere 0.10 thousandths of a second.
Yep.
And then, of course, 2017, we had the first one with stages. We had two big ones, one on the backstretch and one in turn 3. Kurt Busch. Then we saw the lead swap in the last 10 laps. We saw Chase Elliott leading for most of the final 10 laps. He had fuel pickup issues. Mark
Then
Truex
it was
Jr.
Truex.
Then
after
Kyle
that-
Larson.
And then the final lap, Kyle Larson. Remember, Kurt Busch went low. Larson went low. Kurt Busch went back up high. But Larson couldn't get up high because Kurt was there. That's how Kurt took the lead. And Kurt pulled away from Blaney, Allmendinger, and Menard.
And as for Tony Stewart, he couldn't win it as a driver, but at least he was able to get it as an owner.
But you know, Tony Gibson, the crew chief of
Mhm.
Kurt Busch, it was his first 500 win as a crew chief, and he was
super.
he was in the sport for a long time and never won a 500.
Right. He was also responsible for getting Danica Patrick the speed in 2013, winning that pole.
And
2018, speaking of Danica Patrick, her final race of NASCAR and in the Daytona 500. It was 20 years. It was on February 18th, 2018. 20 years since Dale Earnhardt's iconic victory and 18 years or 17 years since his tragic death. Austin Dillon
Brings
Richard
the
Miller,
3-car to victory lane. How about
Yes.
that, man?
That was an emotional victory to see that 3 back in victory lane after those just polarizing anniversaries and just seeing how everything played out the way they did. It was just kind of a touching moment, I'd say, to see Austin Dillon and getting that 3-car back in victory lane. In 2019, we saw an all Hendrick front row, and then we saw an unlikely scenario. Mac DiBenedetto for Levi Family Racing led the most
Being
laps,
the dominant car of the day.
49 total, showing that a lot of drivers led. The most laps led was 49.
You know what that
49.
reminds me of? That reminded me of Kyle Busch in 2009. He would have had a shot to win the 500 that year because he had such a dominant car. You know, and it would be the same thing for the Benedetto when he was with Levi Family Racing.
Right, now let's get into, so here we are, 2020. We just went through most of the Daytona 500s. The questions about when are you going to win the 500? It was those same questions asked to Darrell Waltrip, success. Dale Earnhardt, success. Tony Stewart, unsuccessful.
Successful as an owner.
You're right, but as a driver on that
Nope.
scale, unsuccessful. But how close could he have gotten? Now on that list is Kyle Busch. He's been in every 500 except for 2015 since 2005, and this could be his race. I think he's going to win.
But also, it's not just him that's asking the question.
I'm pulling for him to win too.
Who else is it, Justin?
Brad Keselowski.
Ryan Keselowski.
He's won every auto restrictor plate but the 500.
Dude, he was close to winging it in
Yeah.
2014.
Like he was in third behind Hamlin.
How about 2013 with a damaged front nose?
Well, but Keselowski did wreck in 2011. 2012, he did get caught up in another wreck, but Brad has won every other track in restrictor plates.
Let's
He's won
talk about
Talladega. He's won Daytona in the Clash.
And
He's won Talladega multiple times.
he won the night race at Daytona in 2016. He never won the 500. That's the only race he didn't win.
That's his. with Penske and with Keselowski and Penske, and with Keselowski's,
Yeah.
winning at restrictor plate tracks like Daytona, I think it gives him a perfect shot to win.
He
You
just
All
know,
right, we're in prediction zone now,
don't
so let's make our
don't
picks.
count him out.
You say Brad?
Um,
I think he has a good shot at the top five. Blake, what do you got?
So, actually, the first thing I wanted to say was why don't we have a format for our picks, not just for the wins, but do you guys want to do like picks for like notable others and where they might finish?
Right. I mean, I have multiple predictions on the winner for the 500. I'll get 33 drivers right now.
Um,
Go on, Blake.
all right, so for the win, I have quite a few drivers on my list of drivers to watch. I think hold on, who got the who got first in practice?
practice. Oh, practice was Ty Dillon, but qualifying was Stenhouse.
Oh, Stenhouse. Definitely Stenhouse
Yeah,
is
yes.
one to watch.
Yep.
Um, I don't know. I mean, I think you guys have a lot more knowledge on this stuff than I do. But actually, I might say Stenhouse because I would hope that first in qualifying would do well, but I'm probably gonna get wrecked.
But from I'm trying to think.
I got my predictions.
Like I'm just trying to think.
I'll give you guys mine while Justin's thinking about his predictions. I have three, and I have my main prediction. So here's my second and third possibilities for winning the Daytona 500. We saw what he did at Talladega last year, Daytona 2 years ago. He was so close. He's on an underfunded team. He's locked in the 500 based off speed. Brendan gone. Just watch. My second prediction will be Matt Benedetto, but my third prediction, my third one who's going to win this 500 is Kyle Busch. He'll finally put the monkey off his back to sleep with this 500.
Okay, my predictions. My main predictions. First one of my predictions. This driver, he drives. He doesn't drive for the best team, which is documented. This person is a rookie, and it's not one of the crappiest teams. Justin Haley in the number 16. Colleague Racing has some RCR equipment, like we know. They are locked in on speed, but remember, he was in the front of the pack, not just because he was racing for Spire, but he was in the pack at Talladega. Remember that race at Talladega last year? He was in the pack in his first start. I feel like if he can avoid the wrecks, might have a shot in that 16 car. Second prediction, I have this driver drives. He is a rookie, but he's not driving for a bad team. He replaced a driver that driver's now in a non-chartered car. Cole Custer in the 41. He has speed. That 41 has some speed in that car. And Cole Custer never won a restricted plate in Xfinity competition, but he's been always in the front. Which I feel like Cole Custer's also shot. But my main prediction, this driver, he's born in Arizona. And it's not the Arizona driver that's in the bad team. Starting second in the 500. He's never won the 500. He's been close every year, but his best finish is 11th in the 500, which is not the best. Alex Bowman, the 88, will get his first Daytona 500 win from starting second.
Does anybody else have predictions for notable others and where they might finish?
That's a tough one because with racing like this, you really don't know who you got.
Yeah, do you want to know who I know who finishes 10th? BJ McLeod will get a top 10.
He's lucky that he's even a chartered car.
Hey, Ross Chastain got a top 10 last year. BJ McLeod can't. They're in the same sort of equipment.
So, my prediction for a what was the word? A notable other is Christopher Bell. This is his first Daytona 500. I think, based on his qualifying speed, if he can keep his nose clean, get out, not keep it out of wrecks, I think he could potentially get a top 10 finish.
I'm with you on that. Yeah. He qualified 9th. He just needs a good dual race.
Yep, because he is starting 5th in duel 1. But it's the duels. He has to have a clean duel because some duel races we've seen crashes in it. Like 2018 when Jimmy Johnson blew a tire. Sorry, Jimmy Johnson fans. Sorry, Ian. But Jimmy Johnson crashed because of a flat tire. And he's had to start in a backup car in the back of the field, which really sucks.
Yeah, but I think, it's going to be interesting. Danny, if you're there, I don't know if he's there. He's mute. But if he's there, I would like to hear his predictions of the 500. If not, we'll come back to you later in the podcast because let's talk about NASCAR Xfinity Series racing. The first time they'll be back for the Daytona 300. This is their first of 33 races of the tour for 2020. Last year, Michael Lynette took the victory driving for Junior Motorsports, and the first race was in 1959, won by Benji Matthews. Yes, this is pre-1982 stats. I included that because it's a major event.
But the 1982 race was Dale Earnhardt. Like the
right.
first, when it was first
established one.
Yeah, it was Dale Earnhardt, the number 15 car.
Since it's a ground jewel, decided to add all of them from 1959 onward. The most wins is a tie between Dale Earnhardt and Tony Stewart at 7 apiece.
Oh,
Darrell Waltrip is third on the list with 5 wins. Then Leroy Yarbrough, Bill Dennis, Randy LaJoie, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. have 3 wins apiece. Tiny Lund, Jack Ingram, Jeffrey Bodine, and Ryan Reed have 2 wins apiece. And then for the most team victories, Dale Earnhardt Incorporated lead that list with 8 wins, while Junie, Don Levy, Kevin Harvick Incorporated, and Junior Motorsports have 4 wins apiece. Darwell Incorporated, Darrell Waltrip Incorporated, Hendrick Motorsports, and Richard Childress Racing have 3 wins apiece, while Bordy Racing, Dygard Racing, and Roush Fenway Racing have 2 wins apiece. For most make wins, Chevy has 31, Ford has 14, Pontiac has 7, Mercury has 3, Dodge has 2, and Plymouth, Studebaker, Buick, and Toyota have 1 apiece.
Toyota has 1? What?
Yes, Tony Stewart, 2008.
Oh.
I'm only counting the Daytona 300, not the summer Daytona 250.
I was like, Toyota, I'm like, I was not...
So let's get into some of the facts of the Daytona 300. There's how do I explain it? It's a very interesting race because we see a mixture of experienced drivers from the Cup Series to those that are racing full-time veteran drivers. We see a lot of new drivers and
like we see rookies
rookies experience. It's a melting pot. That's really the Xfinity Series for you.
Yep. Like we see a combination of speed from younger drivers that are inexperienced, but they're young and they're fast. And yet we also see some speed and with experience of older drivers. And it's just interesting to see them battle and because it seems like age is not a significant factor, although it does kind of
Yeah.
mess around with what might happen,
Right.
but it's just interesting.
So yeah, we're gonna make some predictions. The entry list, the official version of it's not posted yet.
But wait, I'm also yeah, it's gonna be posted up tomorrow. But I wanted to say, the youngest driver in the field that I've saw that I know is Harrison Burton. He's born in 2000. He's 19. He's the youngest. But do you want to know who the oldest driver in the field is? Is Mike Harmon, age 61.
It could be Morgan Shepherd though, depending
But
on if he's on the list or not.
they have no sponsors.
We'll see what the list looks like when we go for it.
It's gonna be up tomorrow. Just check
Yeah.
JSK's website tomorrow.
Just a few notes. The new number for maximum cars starting race is 36. So it was 38 last year, 42 years ago. It's 36 now.
If we have like 40 some entries, if we have like 43, just for an example, 7 go home. It
Right.
depends.
So we usually have a high number of entries for this race. Same with the truck race. We'll get to the truck race later. But my Xfinity prediction is going to be pretty clear on this one. I have Justin Allgaier winning the race.
Okay, Allgaier, yeah, he's good at restrictor plates. Okay. I'm trying to think. So hard thinking about it because I don't know. I'm trying to think. Got my prediction. This driver, he's making his first Xfinity start in his career. He's driving the Tax Slayer Chevrolet number 21. Myatt Snyder will win at Daytona.
That's a very interesting pick.
I know he was in the hunt in 2018. He was in the hunt for that win in 2018. But he was involved in a wreck. But he's running in the Xfinity for the first time, but he knows how to race at restrictor plates. He's raced twice he's raced 3 times at restrictor plates. He raced twice at Daytona for Thor Sport and he actually raced a couple times. He also raced for KBM in the 51.
I think he's got experience, so I understand. Blake,
Yeah.
who do you have? I know I'm not so familiar with the Xfinity series, so you may want to check their Wikipedia page for 2020.
Yeah, let me actually pull that up and see who's continuing with that, maybe.
It's usually a unique race because at Daytona, it's the first race. There's a lot of unknowns. And it's the start of a new season.
Let's see. Well, I think I have my prediction.
Okay.
This driver was the 2019 Xfinity Series champion, Tyler Reddick.
He's not in the race.
Oh, he's not in the race. Oh.
Yeah,
Oh, my mistake. Big mistake.
That's fine, dude.
So is Cole Custer in there?
No.
Look at the 2020 list on Wikipedia.
Yeah, there's a list of drivers there.
Yeah, I'm looking. Let's see who do we have.
I don't know why you picked Myers there, but I think he might be a good pick, Justin.
He's driving for RCR.
Yeah, that's true.
And if he avoids the wrecks. Last year there was only one wreck. Only one wreck with Ray Black Jr. and the stage cautions. Remember the race ended single file
Yeah,
with Michael
I
and
liked it actually that way. Plus, I was remember Jeff Greeny was in front there with Ryan Sieg, top 10.
Remember when Cesar Baccarella hit the wall? People were saying, "Oh, Daniel Ford was like overtime, even if they kept it green."
I'm glad they kept it green. Really shows who the real fans are.
Oh my!
If you watch
Did-
Racing for Crashes, I'm sorry, but
it did.
So did Justin Allgaier enter for this race?
yes.
Yep, he's
Okay,
for
good. Okay, yeah, then I'm gonna pick him.
Okay.
All right, that's my pick. Just like Justin, he's got Maya Snyder. So me and Blake, we got Justin Allgaier. Danny, if you're still around, he unmuted himself. Who's your Xfinity pick?
My Xfinity pick is I'm gonna have to go with Allgaier.
Who's your Daytona 500 prediction? Because you missed that.
Keselowski.
All right, so let's move
Either
on.
Keselowski or Busch, but mostly Keselowski.
Bush. Which Bush? Bert or Kyle?
Kyle.
But he said his main predictions Keselowski.
Yeah. All right, now let's move on to the
Truck.
Ganner Truck Series here. This is the first race of their Daytona 250 for the round one of their 23 race schedule. The Next Air Energy Resources 250. That's their formal name. The first race 20 years ago. It was 20 years ago today. Mike Wallace won driving for Ultra Motorsports and one of the most eventful and wild Truck Series races to date.
Yep.
If you remember that race, there was a near fatal crash involving Jeffrey Bodine, a Daytona 500 winner from 1986.
Yep.
He flipped straight. He went head on into the catch fence. The catch fence actually burst into flames for a split second. It looked like a fan may have lost their lives there. It was brutal. And then the truck was with nothing left. Just a roll cage was barrel rolling. You can see his head flying around, and he gets hit again and again. It was awful.
Yep. It was.
And then we saw a last lap pass with Andy Houston, Mike Wallace going to win. Some other interesting races, of course, Joe Ruttman won in 2001. Bobby Hamilton Racing went 2 for 2 with Robert Presley. So yeah, who has the most wins? Johnny Sauter with 3. Todd Bodine has 2 wins. Most wins for a team, tied with 3 apiece. Bobby Hamilton Racing and GMS Racing. Roush Fenway Racing, Germain Racing, and Red Horse Racing have 2 wins apiece. Toyota owns the manufacturer wins list with 9, while Ford has 5 and Dodge and Chevy have 3 apiece.
Yep.
So there's that. It's sure going to be interesting. I think let's pick out a race that was memorable in the Truck Series at Daytona because there were so many of them. One race in particular that I reflect to all the time is the 2005 Florida Dodge Dealers 250.
I actually have yet to watch trucks at Daytona, but just like the Cup cars and Xfinity cars, they should run really good and close at Daytona.
Yep.
And in that 2005 race, Bobby Hamilton and Jimmy Spencer, 2 Dodge rivals, battling for the win. 2 veteran drivers that have already proven themselves, still racing. And just as soon as the white flag came out, Bobby Hamilton made this move, and they wrecked from behind. The caution came out, and it took a long time to determine who won the race because of the moment of caution. And then right then and there, was determined that Bobby Hamilton won the race. They had to put Jimmy Spencer struck out of victory lane and put Bobby Hamilton in the victory lane. And that was actually one of his last few wins before, unfortunately, passing away in 2007 due to cancer. So yeah, that's one of my favorite memories of the race. Or you could throw in 2011 when Michael Waltrip won in a very emotional victory. It was the 10-year anniversary of his Daytona 500 win, the same race that took the life of his then owner Dale Earnhardt.
Well, also 2012 when
Well, we saw one of the greatest upsets in racing.
John King in the 7 won after Joey Coulter flipping into the catch fence. That was not a good way to end for Coulter, but a good win for John King.
John
Also,
King only ran 15 races in his entire career.
2014, remember Kyle Busch and Timothy Peters. 2015, Tyler Reddick won. 2016, Johnny Starr's last lap move and Christopher Bell barrel roll.
Or how about 2017 when literally Thor Sport took their entire top 5 out?
And Kaz Gralla won. Like, Austin Wayne Self got second in the 32.
And Johnny Starr got his third win, breaking the record of now he's got the
2019
crown.
Austin Hill last year, and Spencer Boyd got fourth, but
there was only 9 trucks that finished the race. The rest all DNF.
But you know what's funny? There was a restart with 2 to go. Bobby Gerhardt and Austin Wayne Self crashed on the restart.
I mean, how did you let that happen?
After 2, they wrecked. I'm like, how does that happen? Yeah,
that was the first of many signs of talent that Ross Chastain brought.
Yeah,
we never know that was going to happen, but he showed those signs of impressment, I tell you. So let's get into our truck series predictions, like the Xfinity series. We don't have a list out just yet, a formal entry list. So I'll just go off what I know. For the 2020 Gander Outdoors Truck Series, I believe that that we're going to see now. He's won this race 3 times. He's going to win a 4th.
Oh my.
Johnny Sauter.
Okay. My pick. He drives a Chevrolet. He's ran 1 truck race in his career, which was Phoenix last year, driving the 44. But this year, it's full time. Ty Majeski will win his first career truck race at Daytona. In his second career start, driving the number 45.
All right, Blake, who do you got?
Is Ross Chastain entered?
I don't know. I know he's supposed to run some races, but I don't know if he's in.
I don't know if Daytona's one of them.
I think
might not be.
They said possibly in the 40 truck, but we don't know yet. We'll have to. Yeah, we don't know about him.
So if he
got
is,
other drivers, Stuart Friesen, Matt Grafton.
If he is going to be in it, then he would be my pick. But for like a definite pick, let's see. I'm gonna say Stuart Friesen.
Okay. Yeah.
He had a lot of momentum from last season. A very steady driver. So I can see Stuart Friesen as a possibility, and he's going to be great in the 1.5 miles this year. So I think we have all our predictions, and now we this is going to be a great weekend of racing. There's a lot to talk about.
Also, there's other races like a 2 7-hour races, Sonoma, and other events going on.
Right. We also have an Asian Le Mans series at Sepang.
We have the Monster Energy Supercross.
Tampa Bay.
And also, if there's any Washington Capitals fans, just leave because they're losing 5-1 against the Islanders, and it's a home game for the Capitals. Oh, they're putting Holtby now in net.
I'm actually watching. Speaking of hockey, I'm watching the Florida Panthers Philadelphia Flyers game. Alex Ovechkin's still chasing 700.
They had Samsonov in the net. He led 5 goals, so they're putting Holtby in. But
right now the Flyers are winning 2-1.
Well, anyway, we got our sports talk in.
Yeah, we'll continue on. We'll see you guys next week for sure. I'm still debating on whether we do another special episode on Friday after the duels. That is up to debate.
It depends also. Like, I'm like I'm not there on Friday morning. I'm literally there in the afternoon because some people
So
are busy with.
whatever happens, happens. Just stay tuned for that.
Depending, I'm
That's what I'm
thinking
doing on Valentine's Day.
I'm thinking of joining for the Friday podcast.
If you're up for that, let's go.
It's depending. I'll see about my schedule, but I might be on.
It depends also what time it starts because I finish at.
Trying to do it like maybe in the morning because
Like,
before
I
the cars get on track.
Like I finish at 2:30. That's the problem. I
Mm.
finish at 2:30.
So yeah, keep an eye out for that, and we'll be back for sure next week though.
Yeah.
Just remember follow our social medias, especially Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and our YouTube channel. Remember, just like.
Yep.
If you like our content, subscribe, share us, put us out there. The more the merrier.
Yep.
And with that, have a good one.
And if you subscribe, click that bell notification
Yeah. The
so you get notifications for us.
All right. Have a good one.